knowing, I guess, that you guys have faced kind of the two most high-profile attacks that you're going to see on offense this year, how do you assess the work of your secondary and how much they've grown to this point?
Well, I think they've done a good job. If you look at us from coming off of last season, we were expected to have a secondary that was really experienced with our starters. Our safety's coming back, our corners coming back. The problem is we lost the two corners, two starting corners, and so the guys that got some experience last year behind them, at least one of the guy in Lorenzo, I think has stepped up and played very well. You look at Ian and you look at Devin, and they're guys that are basically redshirt freshmen and with no experience and have been thrown in the mix. Jamil Holloway, who had a lot of experience, Jamil Shaw, who had a lot of experience from the previous season. Shoulder injury is done for the year, and so we were without really our top three returning corners to start the season. So when you look at it from that standpoint, I think the guys that are playing now have done really kind of a remarkable job. And I think the experience that are surrounding them has helped.
You got off to another slow start this past weekend. Talk about what you've been working on to get faster starts.
I don't know that there's anything that you can work on to get off to a faster start. I don't know how to pinpoint that and say if we just get this done, we're going to be able to put points on the board right away. It's a matter of we've played pretty good football teams the first three games, and things aren't just going to go as smoothly as you'd like them to go normally early in the game. You've got to kind of settle into the game and get adjusted to what they're doing, and and no one's just totally run away from us in the first quarter or second quarter. We did have a 14-point deficit in the first quarter this past game, but we ended up at halftime 17-14. So, I don't think we're getting off to horrible starts. It's just that it seems like we've been really more productive after we've settled in on what we want to do with our offensive game plan and defensive game plan as the game has gone on.
Norfolk State coming in this weekend, and they're not, I won't say typical, but they're not what a lot of people will envision when they hear FCS program, right? They're pretty athletic. They've got some guys that had offers from bigger programs, and they put together a pretty good unit.
There's no question. They've got a lot of transfers in, some junior college players in, and so they have got themselves a good football team, and they're very athletic when you look at them on tape. So, I don't know how they're perceived by other people. I know how they're perceived by our coaches, and I know once our players get a chance to see them on film, I know how they'll be perceived by our players. They're a very good football team. They're capable of winning, and so we're just going to have to be on top of our game and do what we've been doing in the first three games, and that's taking pretty good care of the ball and forcing some turnovers, making some big plays. One of the things that I think has happened this past week, that has helped us, is that we've gotten better play from our special teams. So right now we've got a pretty good offensive unit, we've got a pretty good defensive unit, and our special teams are getting better. So hopefully with that kind of combination of things, you're able to put together a team that's not easy to beat, but certainly they're capable of winning this football game. We've got to play our very best.
They know how to win too. They won 9 games last year.
Yeah.
Beat a pretty good Liberty team in week 2, and then last week, if you saw that on film, they were down big, came back,
yeah,
and denied in overtime by the PAT. So they won't be an easy. They won't crack, I guess.
Yeah, and exactly. They'll play very good football, and they'll be very confident. in their abilities coming in, as they should be. And so we expect it to be a heck of a football game. And, we with our approach, of always just trying to get ready for the next opponent, we're putting everything into that, and hopefully it's going to be good enough.
You mentioned special teams, but your cleanest week thus far this season when it comes to whether it was coverage or kick protection or punting, all those kinds of things put together?
Yeah, I think across the board, I looked at, in looking at Marshall, they had dangerous return guys. Their punter was averaging very well. They have a field goal kicker that's good. They covered kickoffs very well. You worried about them blocking punts as well as returning punts, and so we had to be functioning well on in all areas in order to win the game. As far as special teams play, if we had breakdowns in special teams, I think it would have cost us the game.
You mentioned Norfolk State being tough in many areas. What do you think is their most dangerous aspect?
They can really run. Their outside backers are really athletic and can run, and they're one-on-one good football players. And so, it's not a deal where you're just going to knock them off the ball and think that it's going to be an easy day. That ain't going to be the case. And they're balanced on offense. They're averaging 30.3 points a game. I think there's something like 170-some yards rushing, 190-some yards passing, I believe. So it's, very much like us. They're that style of an offensive football team where they're balanced. You got to worry about both aspects of the game from the defensive standpoint, their running game and their throwing game. And they've got skilled people. They've got guys that can really make big plays on both sides of the ball.
Coach, can you just talk about the importance of, I know you kind of touched on this already, but just your guys staying focused. I know on paper the toughest part of your schedule is out of the way, but knowing that for the remaining 9 weeks you're going to get everybody's best shot.
Yep. Well, as far as the toughest part of our schedule being behind us, we never see it that way. Those games are done with. The toughest part of our schedule lies ahead of us, and so we're going to continue to take this game like we have all the others, and just one game at a time. It's the best way to prepare for football games, and not have yourself not play a good game to where you've left something on the field and you try to look back and say, wow, I wish we'd have done this or done that or played a little harder or got a little bit better prepared. We prepare the same for every single football game, and these guys deserve a lot of attention because they are a good football team.
Talk a little about the clutch play of Tyler Tettleton and Matt Weller and Jelani Wosley. They've come up big late games.
Yeah. Matt and Tyler have both won the MAC offensive for Tyler and kicking for Matt, Player of the Week. Now it's twice that they've done it, and they've definitely earned those honors. So their play has been really consistent. I think Matt's first ball game probably he'd like to have a few things back, but most everybody does. And but he's really in a groove right now. He's tremendously confident, and not only is getting a great job done now field goal wise, but if you look at the hang time on his kickoffs and how instrumental that is in terms of our starting field position is really critical, and he's done a great job of that. And of course, Tyler been so competitive throughout his career here. He only has one gear. He only knows how to play the game one way. I can't get him to not practice. He was banged up going into this ball game. Had an injury that bothered him basically throughout the week. Did get an injury in the game, another type of injury in the game, and so at the end of the game he was struggling throwing the ball, and yet was able to do enough to get it done. And so we're going to tie him up this week a little bit let him heal up before he goes out and goes 100 miles an hour like he usually does, whether he likes it or not.
Coach, can we expect as many carries from Bo this week, or would you say you're going to kind of give him a break too as well? Maybe not necessarily in the game, but
Yeah.
at least in practice.
Yeah.
Time him up.
Yeah. You know, he was banged up coming off the previous game, and there was one day he did not practice, but he's a guy that you can't keep off the field either, and you got to love that about if you have those kind of guys in your system, you know, because that's not always the case, and so they're setting great examples. But you know, we got to be conscious of their health, and you know, Ryan Boykin got some snaps in the game. He was not 100% coming off a hamstring injury. I think he'll be better this week, and if he's better this week, he can get some more playing time, and I think that way spell Bo, and so that both those guys, we can have a hopefully fresh tailback on the field for every snap, and then you look at our two young guys, and you know, Kyle's getting some kickoff returns. Dad's got some playing time in this last game, and so we'll get more and more. They'll gain more and more confidence, and so before it's all over, we'll have a pretty strong group of running backs.
You had Daz on the field in the final series, the field goal drive at the end there. Was that Bo a little banged up, Ryan a little banged up, or did Daz just earn the confidence to be able to be in there in that situation?
Well, Bo was banged up. Ryan was not 100%, and so, you know, we have confidence in those two young guys, and so he just, with that confidence, put him in, and I thought he did, you know, a very good job. You know, anytime they can gain experience like that under crucial situations, I think is really beneficial to players. You know, the one thing that he could have done a little bit better was stay in bounds on the one little throw to him, you know, and he knew that. But it was a tough situation, you know. He got pinned in on the sideline and they knocked him out. But you don't, you know, that's you stay in bounds, but he did, I thought, a great job for the limited experience he has here.
And how much does that help Bo too? Being able to have those guys in the backfield, maybe give him a rest every couple of downs.
Yeah, you know, some backs are just workhorse kind of backs, and they can just go and go and go, and I think Bo is that way. But you know, to try to do that for a season is pretty tough, and so you'd like to have other backs share that responsibility as you go through games, and once we get completely healthy, we'll be able to do that pretty well.
Could you just touch on your defensive line? You guys are 22nd, I think, in the country now in rushing yards per game allowed, and talk about the way guys like Neal and Carl have allowed you guys to control things up front defensively.
Yeah, it's a good group. You know, I like their demeanor. I like their athleticism. They can run, and so our starting group is up front is really a very good starting group. You know, we worried a little bit about experience at the linebacker spot with losing Noah, but you know, Keith has played well, and that seems to be working itself out, and our safety support on the run a lot, as many safeties do in college football, and our guys are really pretty good tacklers, and they support quick. So right now, you know, I don't know that we've been challenged the way maybe before it's all said and done, some teams are going to challenge us with the run, but so far they have met what challenges they've had.